Hello, this is Father Michael Nasser coming to you from St. Nicholas Orthodox Church here in Grand Rapids, Michigan for this week's midweek reflection. And this week, my reflection is inspired by something that NASA just pulled off. So you might not have seen this in the news. In fact, before I end this reflection, I hope I remember to tell you something that's very kind of cool and funny to do. But NASA just completed, well, at least is in the middle of an experiment, and the experiment is called DART. I think it stands for Double Asteroid Redirection T something. I can't remember the T, but DART, D-A-R-T. The DART mission was where NASA sent up a small spacecraft and purposely hurtled it towards an asteroid that was not headed towards Earth, but with the idea that it would collide with the asteroid to see if they could adjust the trajectory of the asteroid, because other asteroids might actually be headed towards Earth. It would be very dangerous for people on our planet to have extremely large asteroids coming in and crashing down in places like cities, for example. But even in other places, if it's really big, it could cause lots of problems for the planet. So this was the idea. And why am I thinking about the DART mission? If you think about it, some of you might remember some of these movies from like the 80s and 70s, or I don't remember at all, but where there's a big asteroid coming to Earth, and what do we got to do? We got to send out these huge, really big atomic nuclear weapons and detonate huge explosion or really big thrusters, big things to move this big chunk of rock in space. And yet here's NASA in not science fiction, but science fact saying, yeah, you don't have to do all that. Mathematically speaking, you can crash just a small little spacecraft, and that little bit of a collision is enough to alter. Now, we're going to find out in a week or two, I guess, to find out did it work. But mathematically, they're saying it's all you have to do. Now, why am I reflecting on that? I want all of us to think about what a small change can do to have a big effect. So there it is, small little spacecraft, the size of a small car, maybe even smaller than that, crashing into this huge, huge, huge rock, and it's enough to perhaps save humanity on the Earth. Who knows, you know? And we think about our lives. I think all of us have changes we'd like to make. Hopefully we have changes we want to make in our physical life to eat better and exercise better. Other improvements we want to make, but the most important changes we want to make, of course, are spiritual changes. We want to pray more. We want to be more disciplined in how we govern ourselves and in avoiding temptations and taking on and acting out in virtuous ways. So we want to make changes, and we tend to want to make big changes because, let's be honest, we tend to need to make big changes. And yet, so often we want to make big changes and they just seem so big that we end up too often not doing anything. And what the DART mission can tell us is that a small change can have a huge effect. I talk with people all the time about how they struggle to pray. And what I encourage them to do is just make a small change. Do something relatively small, but do it. No matter how you feel about doing it, no matter how much you want to do or don't want to do it, don't make that a factor. Make a small change, because small change, everybody says, yeah, I can do that. I say to people, can you say the Lord's Prayer every morning? Yeah, I can do that. Well, then do that. People who are struggling to pray at all, I'd say, well, say the Lord's Prayer. Even if you say nothing else, you pray the Lord's Prayer. That's going to have a huge effect. It doesn't have to be, I'm going to sit or stand before my icons and pray for 35 minutes. That's wonderful if you can. But most of us would say, well, yeah, I'm going to do that, but then we don't do it. So let's think about, all of us, a small change. Just think of one. We'll go into a second one later on, but now think of one small change in your spiritual life. Don't worry about it having a large effect. Sometimes we think we need the large effect, like we need to send a nuclear weapon out against an asteroid. No, a small change can have a huge effect. But don't worry about whether it is or isn't. Just think of one small change you could make this week, today, right now, in your spiritual life. Don't worry about the size of the effect. Just do one small change. Maybe that's adding in one prayer that you pray every day. But you got to do it consistently. You've got to do it no matter how you feel about it. And you've got to do it because you understand the importance of it. Without worrying about, is it going to have the big effect? One small change And I would encourage you to try that out. You're probably going to see that a small change can have a big effect, and then you'll make the next small change. That's how things tend to work. Usually when we try to do things too big, it's too big and we don't do it. So let's take some inspiration from NASA. Let's make a small change in our spiritual life today and tomorrow and the next day and keep it up. And then we'll see what changes that God arranges in our life because we make small changes. So I'm glad I remembered. One small thing you can do today, put a smile on your face. Some of the folks at Google had some fun. Google the DART mission, D-A-R-T mission. You got to do it in Google. You can't do it in another search engine. And watch your screen for a good 10 or 15 seconds. And you'll have a little chuckle today. So hopefully you learned something important and you got a little chuckle. And if you enjoyed that, please share it with your friends, however you do that. And God willing, we'll see you in next week's video.